Hello, welcome to another video of heuristic algorithms. In this video I'm going to demonstrate how to manipulate arrays, and for that we're going to generate an array or several arrays. To begin with, let me just create a series of random numbers, and here we just have some random numbers displayed, and just for the sake of knowing how many I have selected, it's 10. Let's fix those numbers. I'm gonna copy those as, or paste them as values. So now it's only the value that I have. And what I would like to do is now to maybe copy this list somewhere else and do some operations with those values in the array. So let's start with our recalling of the macro. We initialize our macro, and we're going to execute this macro with by pressing Ctrl Q, and the macro is an empty macro. So we can edit that macro by pressing Alt F11, and we will get this screen. We can see the macro here under modules, module 1, and there you go, that's our first macro. And the very first thing that I like to do is define my array. I'm going to say A is an array of say size 10, assuming that I know how large it is. I can say dim equal A equals 10, or the size is 10, and I didn't specify it to be integer or anything else, or a real number or double precision. So in this case it is enough to say dim A of 10, and it's going to be a variable type variable, which means that it could take several type of values. It could be a string, it could be an integer, or it could be a real number. And what I like to do is then just read these values from the spreadsheet, and I'm going to record them into my array. So I'm going to type for I equals 1 to 10, or more general, let's say first n equals 10, and then I go for y equals 1 to n. So I can just, by modifying n, modify the whole program, so everything is parameterized based on n. And for I equals 1 to n, I say next I, anything between the 4 and the next is expected to be done n times now. So I'm going to read the values into A of 1 of I is equal to range. And remember what range was that. Then I type offset of, well, in this case I is a row, so I'm going to write I, but the column is not going to change, so I'm going to type 0 dot value. Now I can check my location. My ideal location will be C3, because I want to read this, and since I starts at 1, that's going to scroll down one row. So my reference point for this range is C3. And after I read that, I could have all those values in the array, and I can now inverse this operation. I'm going to read from the location of A, A1, And of course I need to specify a different column to avoid writing on top of it. So I'm just going to select G3, and that's all the macro so far. I go to my spreadsheet and press Ctrl Q, and there you go. The numbers are edited within the Excel menu, so you can see that these two quantities are the same. Now I can do some operations as I go. I could estimate. I can define a new array, say DMB, and it's also size 10, and I'm going to compute an accumulated value, and let's initialize that value with 0. So now as I go reading, I am going to accumulated equals what I previously have in the same variable plus my latest value of AI or ASBI. And what I'm going to write in B of I is precisely the accumulated value, in such a way that when I write it, I can write range. I can use the same reference, G3 dot offset I, and then I'm going to displace one column. So this is going to start writing on H the value equals BI, and that's it. That's a macro. I can execute now, and now what I have in H is accumulated or cumulative value of all the previous numbers, in such a way that 70.5 plus 40.32 is 117.81, and 80 point, if you add to that 80.95, you get 198, and so on and so forth. So this, the total sum for all these 10 numbers, the quantities, is 468.35. Just for the sake of creating a more complete example, let's create yet another one. Dim C of I of 10, and we're going to do exactly the same, but now we're going to do what I call would be the times equals 1. So now I compute the time, the effect of computing times equal times the value of AI, and that way we have access to the value within the array, and we can modify the value of array C by writing times. So now, as opposed to the summation is the product of all the previous numbers, what we will have, and we can print to our canvas just by modifying the line in respect of the number of columns and the array that I'm printing. And that's all the change that I need to do. So once you have a pattern, it's very easy to change it. I execute again, and now you have numbers that need to be edited in a different format. Of course, this number is growing large very fast due to the fact that it's a multiplication. And that's it. That's an introduction to how to manipulate arrays.